Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday meeting of the UW System Board of Regents. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh.
Here.
Regent Vice President Bogus.
Here.
Regent Adams.
Present.
Regent Atwell.
Here.
Regent Bechtel.
Here.
Regent Cologne. Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Menny-Dietz.
Here.
Regent Miller.
Here.
Regent Posh.
Here.
Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Prince.
Present.
Regent Rye.
Here.
Regent Staton. Regent Tucker.
Here.
Regent Underly.
Here.
Regent Walks.
Here.
Regent Weatherly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda? Seeing none, we will get started here. Before we do, I would like to thank Chancellor Frank and her team here at UW-Stout. They've been terrific hosts. We appreciate your hospitality, and you gave us some excellent presentations on your campus yesterday. We really appreciate it. And I'd like to call upon Regent Weatherly to present the report of the Education Committee.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. At our meeting yesterday, the Education Committee approved 5 programs, received a host presentation, and discussed academic program planning. Committee actions included approving the February 2023 meeting minutes and approving UW-Madison Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science in Chicana, Chicano, and Latino Studies. This offers an interdisciplinary analysis of Mexican and Latin American cultures and communities within the U.S. as the second largest and fastest growing minoritized population in Wisconsin. This understanding will be in demand for the university and the workplace. Number 2, UW-Madison Master of Science in Business, Data, Insights, and Analytics. This responds to the increase of data availability and the desire of companies to use it as a competitive resource. It will be delivered in a part-time, online, asynchronous format that students can complete in 2 years. 3, UW-Oshkosh Bachelor of Science in Biomechanical Engineering. This will prepare graduates to enter a wide range of careers in biomedical technology and healthcare, including medical implants and prosthetics and devices and equipment, imaging and signal processing, and organ and tissue engineering. Number 4, UW-Stevens Point Bachelor of Science in Conservation and Community Planning. Elevating a current emphasis will provide students with a clearly defined major and dedicated curriculum so that they can work as city or regional planners, land trust and advocacy staff, and conservation project managers. Lastly, UW-Stevens Point, Bachelor of Science in Environmental Education and Interpretation. This also elevates an existing emphasis, which has been accredited by the North American Association of Environmental Education since 2014 and is now only one of 12 in the U.S. We then heard a host presentation from UW-Stout's Provost Glenda Lee Rodriguez and Dean of Students Sandy Scott, who together highlighted UW-Stout's commitment to student success with a focus on mental health and overall student well-being within the context of UW-Stout's Polytechnic mission to provide applied learning, career-focused, and collaborative education. Lastly, our main focus was academic program planning strategy at the UW system and campus level. It fits within the context of the UW System Strategic Plan and its objectives to promote innovation, collaboration, and meet the needs of Wisconsin's current and future workforce. Facilitated by UW Green Bay's Provost Kate Burns, the Provost explained the current strategic process for academic degree program planning and review. It focused on how campuses identify new program areas to sustain access to student majors and careers while effectively managing resources. Regent President, this concludes my report. I therefore move for adoption by the board resolutions C1 through C6.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Regent Weatherly. And I'm moving through here. Now report of the CAP Planning and Budget Committee, Regent Rye.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. The committee commenced the meeting with item D, the consent agenda, which includes the sale of 2 properties, 10 all-agency projects, and 3 minor facility renewal projects. The committee approved all the consent items. Next, the committee considered item E, a UW-managed project to construct the library's collections preservation facility project at Madison for $35,228,400. This project constructs a 38,000 square foot addition to the Verona shelving facility to house some of the most valuable and important items from special collection and archives within the library collection. This project is a result of a 2018 facilities master plan that recommended the consolidation of the collection by constructing additional storage options to facilitate a reduction in on-campus space dedicated to the collection. The new facility will provide the appropriate physical conditions to preserve irreplaceable archives, art, and scholarly collections. Item E was approved by the committee. Item F reviewed and approved a UW-managed project that will construct the Near East Play Fields renovation project at Madison at a cost of $10 million. The project will replace the natural turf outdoor playing fields east of the new Pocky Recreation and Wellbeing Center on Observatory Drive with synthetic turf. The new fields will accommodate 4 soccer fields and 1 overlaid championship soccer field. The project also includes a support building, which will include restrooms, check-in, athletic training, and storage for maintenance and athletic equipment. The committee heard about item G, design and construction of the Madison, and we approved item F. The committee heard about item G, design and construction of the Madison Chemistry 2nd and 4th floor lab renovation project at a cost of $10,952,000 of gifting grant dollars. This project renovates 17,000 square feet on the 4th floor of the new North Tower from unfinished space into research labs, faculty offices, research assistant offices, lab support spaces, and conference rooms. Another 2,000 square feet located on the 2nd floor of the Daniels Building will be renovated into an educational suite. Item G was approved by the committee. Next, the committee reviewed and approved item H to increase the budget to accept bids on the Madison South Campus Utility Improvement Project at a cost of $1,552,200 for a total cost of $24,312,200. This project replaces or constructs new steam and primary electric signal communication utilities along Dayton Street. The budget increase is needed to complete the originally approved project scope and intent, including connecting the Charter Street heating plant to the East Campus steam distribution network and extension of chilled water laterals to the teacher education building. And we approve that as well. Glenda Lee Rodriguez, Provost and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, and Justin Upadel, Director of Facilities Management, presented Intentional and Strategic Planning for the Future, which outlined UW-Stout's long-range planning process to prioritize facilities that are flexible, efficient, and resilient. The presentation described their participatory planning process to promote curricular and co-curricular quality experiences to ensure overall student well-being. Key themes are the promotion of a student-focused approach to planning and cross-institutional collaboration. Paul Seitz, Director of Strategic Initiatives, provided an update on the West Campus District Plan process, including stakeholder engagements and feedback, benchmark visits, and preliminary concepts. This presentation builds on revenue innovations and real estate work previously shared with the board over multiple meetings in 2020, 21, and 22. It follows an update in September of 22 on the launch of the West Campus District Plan and will connect to a planned update in July of 23. We concluded the meeting with an update by Senior Associate Vice President Alex Rowe on the 2023-25 capital budget process, the March State Building Commission hearings, and program revenue borrowing update. That completes my report, and I move resolutions D1, D2, D3, D4, E, F, G, and H.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion on any of the projects? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Regent Wright. We'll move to the Audit Committee. Regent Miller.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. The Audit Committee met yesterday morning
Chief Audit Executive Lori Stortz reviewed the progress to date on the fiscal 2023 audit plan. She confirmed that her office is making solid progress on the plan with a number of audits currently underway. She expects to bring more reports to the committee when we meet again in June. Ms. Stortz also reported that the fiscal year 2024 audit plan will be presented to the committee in June. She indicated her office is being mindful of the impact of ATP implementation will have on audit clients and bears in mind as they prepare for the next fiscal year. Ms. Stortz then provided a high-level summary of the results of audits recently issued by the Office of Internal Audit since we met last in February 2023. This included the executive summary of the export controls audit and an executive summary of the general ledger clearing accounts audit. The export controls audit assessed infrastructure, policies, and procedures that are currently in place to ensure that campuses across the UW system are in compliance. Ms. Stortz reported there were a small number of comments related to policy and oversight, and they recommend UW system work with UW-Madison and all other UW campuses toward collaboration in order to reach full compliance. The general ledger clearing account audit was useful to help prepare for the move to ADP. Ms. Stortz stated that during the audit, 6 best practices were identified. The Regents had a robust discussion regarding this audit. We believe that system must have accurate and timely financial reports. Inherent in that expectation is that the underlying accounts are reconciled on a timely basis. It was agreed that this expectation should be made clear to the chancellors and chief business officers. Chief Audit Executive Lori Stortz will meet with the system finance leadership and plan a subsequent follow-up audit to confirm that the issues found in this audit have been addressed. This report will be issued to the Board of Regents. The Regents thank the participants for their ongoing efforts to support the UW system. This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Miller. And now Regent Bechtel for 2 items, the report of the Joint Audit and Business and Finance Committee meeting, and then followed by the Business and Finance Committee report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh. The Audit Committee, chaired by Regent Miller, and the Business and Finance Committee had a joint meeting yesterday. The purpose was to receive an update on this very important Administrative Transformation Program, or ATP. As background, the ATP project will modernize the outdated administrative technology infrastructure of the UW system by standardizing finance, human resources, and research administration business processes, and implementing integrated cloud-based technology systems. The project was authorized by the Board of Regents back in October 2020 and had a scheduled to go live date, has a scheduled to go live date of July 2024. You'll recall originally UW-Madison was to go to live July 2024, and then the remaining 12 campuses would go live July 26. But through encouragement of the Regents and consideration by all the campuses, we've actually moved this project forward, and we've approved that in May of 2021, let's go ahead and have all the campuses go live in a unified approach and do so by July 2024. So we've actually accelerated this project. The committees received a status report from the ATP leadership team that shared issues identified during the project's planning and architect phase and corrective actions, which are really important, taken by the team to address these gaps. We know this project is going to have some issues, and what they're doing is they're identifying the issues. We've got an outside quality assurance department that's looking at things, and we're catching these things as we go. And so that's, I've seen that before in big projects, and that's really helpful. So we thank Stephen Hopper and his team for implementing that important corrective action as they're building out the system. Among these are the provision of additional staffing and financial resources to the non-UW-Madison universities to ensure successful adoption of Workday at those institutions. And just to that point, and Stephen shared this with us and it was in your packet, there's actually 3 different buckets by which the university system is providing resources back to the campuses to make sure this is a unified, comprehensive approach. We've come up with $16.5 million as kind of a co-investment on this project. That'll run from now until the end of the project next year. This goes to hiring project managers, business analysts, SIS developers. They're going to be hired by the system, but then assigned to campuses, so that's one bucket. Another bucket is to provide funds to campus to backfill positions, so they know what they need and have. Here's some dollars to help you backfill those positions. And then lastly, just a stipend to the campuses. There's other costs associated with doing a project of this magnitude, so here's a bucket of dollars to help you campuses absorb those impacts. Really, really appreciate that the system was able to work this out, and we worked this out, folks, within budget. The team continues to monitor key risks, which include staffing challenges and the integration of ancillary systems. While the team has implemented mitigating actions, these and future unknowns could affect the project's scope and schedule. And as I noted, the project is tracking actually under budget with these financial contingencies available to resolve the challenges that will come. They will be there. While acknowledging the potential impacts of these risks on the scope and schedule, ATP leadership continues to target July 2024. The train will come in the station as an achievable implementation date. I said train, Stephen, not plane. We had a little fun with an awkward analogy yesterday. So no action on that, President Walsh. And then there's one item to approve a dining contract with Compass Group for Business and Finance. So Business and Finance Committee convened and proceeded with its agenda as follows. We had a presentation from UW-Stout. This was entitled The Value of Cost of a Polytechnic Education. UW-Stout's Chief Business Officer and Head of Staff shared an overview of the university's success in preparing students to be career-ready through applied learning experiences and impactful collaborations with industry professionals. They also provided details on the challenges of successfully delivering a polytechnic education, including the financial and infrastructure resources needed to continue to prepare graduates to help meet existing workforce demand. And as we went forward in the discussion to talk about the tuition issue, they shined a very good light for us on the need for differentials, not only on a campus that may have a unique mission, but also within unique majors, where the cost of providing services and education to nursing, engineering, some of these other items do warrant the need for a differential. The committee then reviewed and approved the 2023-24 tuition and fees proposal for UW systems institutions, which, as Regent President Walsh has noted, was discussed, and then we all acted upon that later in the afternoon as the full Board of Regents. And here's the one item that requires approval today. The committee approved an agreement with Compass Group USA for all dining services operations at UW Green Bay. Under the terms of this agreement, UW Green Bay will receive an estimated $1.6 million in commission guarantees over the life of a 7-year contract. In addition, the vendor will invest $1 million to support dining improvements and facility enhancements. And we also noted that there will be work-study opportunities for students and payroll dollars, flowing into their pockets, part of the contract. The committee then received a mid-year report on gifts, grants, and contracts awarded to UW system institutions through December of 2022. Total awards for the 6-month period were approximately $1.2 billion. And thankfully, that's an increase of $84.3 million, or 7.6%, from the same period in the prior year. And it's largely driven by an increase in federal research grants. And we noted at committee some of the universities, some of the campuses that are doing the best job in attracting federal dollars. Madison obviously takes the lead, but Superior, mighty Superior, brought in about $19 million last year. So go Superior. And then there are other campuses noted. So we do appreciate where campuses are reaching out and trying to increase our funding levels from the federal government. Lastly, the Trust Fund's Executive Director, Chuck Saunders, presented the investment report for the period ending December 31, 2022. As of that date, UW System Trust Fund's assets totaled $543.2 million. And for the quarter, the long-term fund increased in value by 4.7%, in line with the benchmark, and the income cash fund gained 0.9% for the period. So in conclusion, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I now move for approval of Agenda Item F, the food services contract.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Very well. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Regent Bechtel. We will miss your reports. All right, now we turn to an issue of critical importance to the success of our students, and that's accessibility on the UW system campuses. Last September, the Education Committee discussed some of the challenges our university disability resource centers are experiencing. They have high demand for their services and low staffing levels, and the resulting does impact student outcomes. Students seek accommodations for a wide range of physical, psychological, learning, and other disabilities that present barriers for them to access both living and learning environments on their campuses. Delays in implementing accommodations, as well as insufficient availability of supportive interventions due to low staffing, can result in academic underperformance, the need to drop classes, delays in progress to graduation, or even dropping out of school. Following up on that report, student leaders and disability advocates invited Regent Vice President Bogus and myself to a listening session at February's shared governance meeting. Today's panel offers a continuation of that discussion to bring the full board into the conversation. Now I'd like to invite our panelists to join us at the table, and we'll turn the floor over to Dr. John Octor, UW System's Interim Associate Vice President for Student Success.
Thank you, Regent President Bogost, or Regent President Walsh, sorry.
Hang on another year.
Yeah, right? Well, good morning, everybody. I'm John Octor, Interim Associate Vice President for Student Success and Director of Student Behavioral Health. For accessibility purposes today, I will do a brief visual introduction. I am a white male in my 50s, around 6 feet tall, with thinning hair that my family tells me is gray, despite my denial, and I'm wearing a suit coat. It is in my capacity as Director of Student Behavioral Health that I'm privileged to work with disability services offices at our universities, as well as liaison to the President's Advisory Committee on Disability Issues. On behalf of disabled students, faculty, and staff on our campuses, and all those who advocate and support them, we thank the board for this opportunity to put a spotlight on the topic of disability and accessibility. For the purposes of today's conversation, we will be referring to disabled individuals or persons with disabilities interchangeably, as both are accepted ways of referencing this population as a group. Please note that both an ASL interpreter and live captioning are available today to make this meeting accessible to both our participants and our audience. As Regent President Walsh said at last September's board meeting, disability services directors and senior student affairs officers presented to the Education Committee on the changing face of students with disabilities. One highlight from that presentation included the fact that the number of students seeking accommodations for disabilities has grown by 50% over the last 5 years. I looked back 8 years, and that number is actually 80%. This has created challenges in disability services offices to meet their obligations to provide reasonable accommodations. You'll hear this theme repeated today by our students. That presentation also focused on how the types of disabilities that students bring to campuses has also changed over time. One of the recommendations that emanated from the presentation, and another theme that you will hear repeated today, was a call for more and better training for faculty and staff to keep up on student disability needs and best practices for making our environments more accessible. In this vein, I'm happy to share that thanks to recurring funding from the Student Behavioral Health Initiative that this board has supported, we are offering a 3-part webinar series on understanding, connecting, and supporting autistic college students during the month of April. We currently have over 500 faculty and staff registered. This speaks to a hunger and a commitment on our campuses to meet students' needs. Yet we also know that we can do more. So today's discussion is unique. It's unique because it emerged organically from discussions student leaders and disability advocates have been having during monthly shared governance meetings hosted by System, and to which they recently invited board leadership. I'd like to thank 3 students who you won't hear from today, but who were instrumental in bringing this discussion to the board. All of them are from UW-Milwaukee, and one is here today. So I'd like to thank Zen Johnston, Mia Heredia, and Kay Papian. Thank you for your passion and commitment to accessibility and your selfless willingness to center the voices of others whose experiences deserve to be lifted up. So, instead of beginning in the customary way today by hearing from university professionals, we are going to flip the script. Today you'll hear first from 4 students who will share their personal experiences with accessibility challenges due to disability and what they think we could be doing differently to better meet their needs. After that, we will hear from 3 campus disability professionals to respond to a few follow-up questions related to the themes students identify. Our professional staff panelists are all members of the President's Advisory Committee on Disability Issues. This is a long-standing committee that advises the system president on disability issues and makes recommendations related to policy and practice. And then finally, we will have a good third of our time for open question and answer with the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first student, Karime, who will further introduce herself and share her experiences with you. Karime.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yes,
That's great.
thank you.
So hello, everybody. My name is Karime Galaviz. I'm a student at the UW Green Bay Manitowoc campus. I'm going to the Green Bay campus in fall. Majoring in communications with an emphasis in sports and social media and a minor in Spanish. I know it's a lot, but anyways. When it comes to student accessibility, it's very important and also very personal to me. As someone with a physical disability, I have a condition called spina bifida, and I also have hip dysplasia. Although I have this disability, I still have struggles with getting accommodations. I've had these struggles my whole life. Let me tell you all a little fun story. I was recently hired as a student ambassador at the Green Bay campus, and going through our tour route, I experienced a very fun situation of trying to get through a ramp that was covered in snow and ice. Now, my best friend and I, luckily, have been through this situation before. But there were another group of students with me, and they did look concerned, and it was the nearest ramp to get to the building that I needed to get to for this tour route. I tried to lighten up the mood by telling them that we need to get a tow truck because I'm stuck. And I was able to get a little laugh out of them, but it did take about 2 to 3 minutes to get myself unstuck. After I got into the building, I did explain the seriousness of the situation. I was actually asked what one of my biggest obstacles would be being a student there, and I literally said, well, everybody just saw my biggest obstacle outside, and it's totally fine. I've been through it my whole life, but at the same time, it's really not acceptable. The fact that me, someone with a physical disability, still has struggles like this, it's really hard for me to imagine students with the invisible disabilities. As someone with hip dysplasia, I have chronic pain. I learned that it's not often they give accommodations to students with chronic pain. I had to go through a whole process of doing that, and I was grateful enough. I did get the accommodations I needed because of my hip pain, but it was quite a mission to get those accommodations. Again, very grateful that I got them, though. I guess one of my biggest things here is that as someone with this physical disability, the fact that I still struggle getting accommodations throughout my whole life, I truly cannot imagine the students with invisible disabilities who struggle, and I hear their struggles every day. This is something that I believe there needs to be more done about student accessibility with this. It's really, really important to me. I've been an advocate for it my entire life, and I will continue to advocate for it. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I'm very grateful that you guys are very, welcome to listening to us about this. With that, our next student is Hunter.
Thank you. I would like to note that there is a very proud dad in the room who brought her with us today.
A proud dad.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Please go ahead now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again to the board for allowing us to have this opportunity. Hello? All right, cool. So hi, everybody. My name is Hunter Keister. I am a sophomore here at UW-Stout in the Hotel, Restaurant, and Tourism Management degree. And I really focus when it comes to accessibility in my efforts I work in the Disability Services Office here as a Special Projects Coordinator, which essentially means I work on projects whenever students with disabilities or myself notice an issue on campus regarding a physical condition, a policy, or something with academia. So a lot of the things that I noticed when I first came to Stout last fall was there's no Braille, and I'm a blind student, so it's very, very hard for me to try to find classrooms. I would essentially take 15 minutes extra time before my scheduled class to ensure that I found the right room, and then find somebody who could tell me that I am at the correct room for the building that I'm trying to get to. And one of the projects that I've worked with the Disability Services Office and the UW-Stout campus architect, and we've all been really receptive to change and making sure that this is going forward and any renovation going forward. We've started to implement a plan going forward with universal design. For those of you who do not know what universal design is, it is a plan based on inclusion of all people, of all ethnicities, race, gender, and especially disability when it comes to buildings, infrastructure, and policy, so that everyone has an equal chance to succeed. So that's what really I'm passionate about, especially when I've gotten to come to Stout. But yeah, I would just want to give the floor to Harrison, who would be our next speaker.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to use a disembodied voice today. It appears that the camera might work at the moment, and I might be worked up. But before that, I'm going to begin my remarks. It's genuinely an honor to be speaking to you today. My name is Erin. I'm a senior at UW-Parkside College, and I'm the president of our university-wide student government association. I've never seriously considered the possibility that I might be a student with accessibility needs. Throughout my education, I've routinely felt that academic coursework has been the least challenging part of my life. Despite managing episodes of depression and anxiety throughout my education. Even during those occurrences, I wouldn't have really thought of myself as somebody in need of accommodation or assistance, but more so that I just needed a break. And now being on what I hope is the other side of those challenges, I have turned to considering the sort of barriers that other students are going to encounter in our university system. As rates of depression, anxiety, ADHD, and other conditions such as autism continue to rise, it is pretty clear that the existing services are struggling to meet student needs. It's my impression, through my personal and anecdotal experience and the experience of students I've met, that accessibility services have traditionally been reactive. Students have to become self-advocates to get reasonable access to facilities and instruction. And this model is especially challenging for students with invisible disabilities that may go unnoticed. A common coping mechanism for students with depression and anxiety, for example, is to disengage from anything that isn't urgently important. When your daily struggle is to find a reason to do your dishes or get dressed, reaching out for help from a stranger is often an insurmountable task. So unfortunately, the student services are often under-resourced and forced to triage these urgent needs of students. And this shortfall between the lack of accessibility services and resources and the needs of students is not acceptable. It's unfair that students are only served when they are in crisis. It's unfair that staff are constantly expected to react to urgent concerns and to teeter on the brink of burnout and compassion fatigue. And it's especially unfair that we do not do more proactive work to create inherently accessible opportunities, facilities, and curriculum. What helped me, and what I hope will help other students, is faculty and staff with the time and energy to carefully attend to their students, inherently inclusive course structures and resources, and reducing the demands placed on students to advocate for themselves on top of their existing struggles. This problem is immediate and severely impactful for students and their ability to be successful within the university system, and deserves greater attention. Additional staffing and the acquisition of new assistive technologies are only a few solutions that should be elevated in the name of creating greater access to higher education. Now more than ever, students are attending college with greater need for accommodation, and we must be ready to assist. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our final student speaker, Teresa Davis.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Davis. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a third-year student at UW-Milwaukee in the College of Health Sciences. I am also the Accessibility Advocacy Senator with our campus's Student Association at UW-Milwaukee. For a brief physical description, I have short brown hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a black button-down shirt. So today I will be speaking as a student who has been advocating for other students with disabilities, including myself. And I think that speaking about on the projects that have found success versus some of the initiatives that have faced many barriers might be helpful. So promotional events to market our resource centers have been very effective in supporting these organizations and gaining the attention of students. I helped organize an outreach event last semester that consisted of a bunch of our resource center staff members coming together to play games and do crafts and eat snacks, while just being able to connect with students and pass out information about the organizations they're representing. I'm currently organizing a second event similar to this one since we found so much success with our first event, and we're hoping to incorporate a wider range of campus organizations. The reason this event is so important and successful is because many students lack the knowledge of what resources are available to them or just how they can go about utilizing them. So creating these outreach events and marketing materials, we're creating more opportunities for students to get connected with the centers on campus that are here to support them. Additionally, many of the resource centers are facing barriers with funding and staffing. For example, our campus's Accessibility Resource Center has reached out to inquire about potential funding through segregated fees as they're struggling to continue to support their students with the limited funds and staff they currently have available to them. I have found that attempts to implement encouragement for DEI training for all faculty and creating an ADA audit to assess structural issues on campus, such as the bathrooms and walkways, classrooms and doorways, those have been a real challenge to get started. I've spoken to many different folks and departments about these projects, but no one has really been able to give me a direct answer as to who would be the best person to discuss these things with and who can actually implement those changes. So it's been a little hard not to feel discouraged by kind of continuously hitting these dead ends. But the DEI training is so vital because it will create a more unified campus and support more communities than just the disabled community. For example, students of color and students within the LGBTQ+ community will also benefit by having a more educated and compassionate faculty. In addition to the training, there also needs to be a stronger sense of responsibility and willingness to learn among university staff, so that if a faculty member continues to maybe be reluctant to implement these accessibility measures in their area of campus, someone will speak to them and prevent that issue from continuing to impact students, and maybe provide them with additional training until they kind of understand and begin to implement those changes. Because providing opportunities for education is super important, but follow through from both faculty and administration is really what's going to make a change. As a student with mental health struggles and who is also a member of the LGBTQ+ community, I know that knowing that my professors and advisors have had that DEI training would help me personally feel a lot more confident and supported. I've had times where I've needed extensions on assignments due to mental health struggles, and because I do not have official accommodations through campus, just because I'm unfamiliar with the process and until recently didn't really know about these resources, I felt very anxious or ashamed to ask for the support I needed from my professors and instructors, because I was unsure if they would have a compassionate response or not. So a lot of times I would either not submit the assignment or submit it late or submit it not to the best of my ability, because I didn't know if I could ask for help from that professor or instructor. So it would be very helpful to me to know if my instructors have had some sort of training in how to support students with disabilities. Additionally, the ADA audit is extremely important as students with physical and visual disabilities are facing many barriers while walking to class and do not have the same access to campus buildings and resources due to issues with ADA compliance. And a huge issue is the construction around campus has been creating a lot more barriers. So to encourage students to continue attending classes and events on UWM's campus, we need to have a more accessible campus that educates its students and faculty on appropriate behavior and language and provides accessible buildings and walkways. It's been very heartening to see recently how many different areas on campus have been creating conversations about how to better their inclusive measures, but there's still much more we can accomplish all together in terms of accessibility and inclusion. Knowing that your university is going out of its way to be inclusive and care for its students is going to encourage folks to continue to keep signing up for classes and encouraging their friends and family to apply to UW-Milwaukee and continue to put their money and passion back into the university as a future alumni. Thank you.
All right, thank you to each of our students. We'd now like to hear from our President's Advisory Committee members on the panel. I'm going to pose a few questions, ask that you introduce yourself as you answer the first question. So first question, all of the students today discussed barriers with accessibility. Could you please level set for us by answering the basic question, what does accessible mean? Is there an accepted definition, and how should we be thinking about accessibility?
Hello, my name is Ann Murphy. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Director of Disability Services here at Stout.
Could you please move the mic closer? Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today in beautiful Western Wisconsin. I have worked in partnership with students with disabilities for over 20 years. As a visual description of myself, to provide access for all of our guests, I am a white woman, have blonde curled hair, am seasoned in my years, and am wearing a print shirt with a black sweater. Accessibility is about equity and inclusion. Accessibility ensures that our campus environments, the content of our courses, and all university activities provide an equitable opportunity for students to participate and interact in a meaningful way, regardless of their ability and circumstance. Our role is to work in partnership with students, faculty, staff, and our leadership, and to identify and respond in ways that our physical, digital, social, and intellectual environments might create barriers that limit a person's ability to access and effectively participate in them. It's an important reminder that disability rights are an individual's civil rights.
John, this is Ruben. I'm wondering if I could add a little bit to what Ann said. Is everyone able to understand me this morning? My name is Ruben Moda. I use he, him, his pronouns, a brief visual description for accessibility purposes. I am a man with brown skin, black hair, beard, and I'm wearing a shirt and tie today along with a suit. It's a privilege to be here with our students this morning and to be speaking with the board. I work at UW-Madison as the ADA coordinator in the Office of Compliance. I have occupied this role for the past 3 years. I have worked at UW-Madison for a total of 10 years, and I have 20 years of experience working with disabled individuals. Ann highlighted equity and inclusion as two critical terms. I would like to introduce you to two other terms that we can use to think about accessibility. And those terms are independence and equivalent ease of use, or just someone being able to easily access a university program, service, activity, workspace, digital tool, or facility. So we can really think about accessibility as in the examples that Karime and Hunter shared with us this morning as a loss of accessibility when an individual with a disability is not able to independently and with the same ease of use as non-disabled individuals access the university environment. So we often think about how we navigate our physical and digital spaces. We do it with ease. We're able to locate water fountains, restrooms. We're able to locate primary functions of buildings. These are essential spaces that we need to go for our meetings. But for disabled individuals, this can be quite a challenge, especially if we're missing appropriate signage, braille, or we have barriers that impede someone from using an accessible entrance. Imagine for a moment that we all want to use our favorite digital app to order food. We do it many, many times a month. It takes a couple seconds to log into our account and to be able to order food, and voila, 30 minutes later we have our food delivery. But if that app is not accessible, then the alternative means is that a disabled person has to call that restaurant, and imagine that they're put on hold for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then they need to have a conversation to then figure out what is on the menu, what's available, and then the service is finally provided. So when we think about accessibility, we can often conceptualize it as the environment, whether it's the built environment, the digital environment, the classroom, the intellectual environment. Can someone with a disability use it independently and with ease of use? One thing I would like to highlight is that accessibility is not about a disabled person not using their assistive device. So assistive devices are things like wheelchairs, screen readers, a white cane, a service animal. Disabled individuals do have to use these devices. It's just ensuring that our environment is accessible. So that way, with the use of these devices, we have an accessible and inclusive environment. The more accommodations we need to provide is an indication that our environment, whether physical or digital ecosystem, is not accessible to individuals with disabilities.
Thank you, Ruben and Ann. So both Karima and Hunter discussed challenges with the physical environment that create barriers to accessing university facilities and public spaces. Can you share how students or others can report physical accessibility barriers, and what are best practices for reporting facilities or other access concerns, and what are the mechanisms for addressing them?
John, this is Ruben. I'd be more than happy to start off on this question. At UW-Madison in October 2021, we operationalized and posted an accessibility barrier reporting form. This is an online form that students, employees, program participants, so someone who's visiting the university, for example, attending a conference, or a visitor such as a parent, are able to report any barriers they experience, whether it is in the physical built environment or accessing a digital tool such as a university website. And it was important for us to establish this reporting tool because as disability providers at our universities, it's extremely critical that we are having that communication with disability groups who interact with our environment to better understand what is the current landscape and what are the barriers that individuals are experiencing. So whenever we receive a report, we review the information that we receive, particularly with our facilities team, but also with any departments that own that digital tool. For example, we might have a local department that operates a website that is not accessible to a screen reader, which is a piece of assistive technology. And so we work with facilities or with the department to remove the barrier or to determine what are some reasonable solutions that we need to implement. A barrier reporting form, I would also like to highlight, is critically important because we are in a little bit of a nuanced space when it comes to facilities access. So we're well aware of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is a federal civil rights law. The ADA put forward the 1991 ADA standards for accessible design. These are essentially the ADA's accessible building code, just like we have international building codes, international fire codes. we have buildings that must be up to accessibility codes. These standards, however, only require that these codes be applied when a facility undergoes a renovation or when we enter into a new build, so when we plan to build a new building at our universities. So we're in a unique situation because all of us work on campuses where we have really old buildings that have either historic value or these are buildings that have yet to be renovated. And our observations of the 27 barrier reports that we received at UW-Madison between October 2021 through the end of June 2022 indicate that some of our older facilities that are not fully accessible because they have not been wholly renovated or have yet to undergo a renovation are some clear pain points for individuals with disabilities trying to access them, either for classroom spaces or because their workspace is in that facility. We've also have reviewed digital accessibility reports, reporting some websites not being accessible. So this tool has been really, really beneficial to the work that we're doing at UW-Madison to try to figure out what are some seamless and quick ways that we can address issues without going through looking at capital planning and kind of long-term building projects.
Thank you, Ruben.
Good
Elizabeth,
morning.
would you like to?
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Watson. I go by she, her pronouns. I have long brown hair. I'm wearing a white shirt, a pair of fetching dark-rimmed glasses. I'd like to say I'm in the prime of my life. Thank you for that, Anne. I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the President's Advisory Committee for Disability Issues. I also serve as the Dean of Students at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and prior to that, I was the Director of Disability Services at Whitewater for 13 years. In addition to that, I'm the founder and the primary investigator of a research center, the Center for Inclusive Transition, Education, and Employment, that solely focuses on access and inclusion for individuals with disabilities in the state and in the country. A shout out to our colleagues at Superior. City this year is going to clear $13 million in funding for UW-Whitewater, so just wanted to throw that little tag out there. What Ruben brought up is that we frequently don't know what we don't know. And if we aren't creating access for individuals to share that information with us, we're creating an additional barrier. And when we aren't making that public knowledge that's readily available and easy for individuals to report, we're adding layers of saying, you don't belong here. We say this to our students unintentionally. None of us intend for our students not to be welcomed and accessible on our campuses. But every time somebody has to click more than 3 times to get through a website, we lose them. Every time somebody's lost in the navigation, anytime somebody can't see the image of your campus that you're trying to share and celebrate, they're lost in that world. We'd like individuals to think about universal design, which was originally rooted in architecture. This was the idea that everybody could use and access facilities with minimal ease and minimal barrier. This is also translated into education. Many of us have talked about universal design in education. What we run into and what Ruben shared with the ADA is also the minimum we have to do. And frequently the minimum is not functional. So when you look at an example of a bathroom, and I will be honest with you, I've designed 21 bathrooms for UW system, and I hope someday to design a good one. Every time I go in with the intent, you have to have a 5-foot turning radius. What happens after that is there's a circle drawn on the piece of paper that the architect gave you. And that looks great. And then we add in a toilet, a sink, a paper towel dispenser, a trash can, a hand soap, and a mirror. How many of you have walked into a bathroom and had a toilet paper dispenser on top of a grab bar, and you can't figure out how to get the toilet paper out because it's wedged in between the bar, or you have to fold yourself to a 90-degree angle to reach underneath to release the toilet paper? So imagine being a person with a disability. So functionality with intentional design through universal design is part of what our students and our employees and our community members need to access. Those small barriers become insurmountable when they're compounded, when we lack the ability to effectively communicate and say, this is my barrier, how do I navigate it, and how do I get connected to the resource that supports me through that? We've had lots of examples of that, but the biggest one that we want to emphasize is that our ecosystems, learning, physical, and digital, interact regularly today. And if we're only striving to meet the minimum standard, then we've already created the first barrier that our individuals on our campuses are going to encounter.
I'm going to ask just one more question because we want to leave plenty of time for discussion. So I want to focus on solutions, which was a big focus of Teresa's efforts on their campus. Based on what we've heard today and your experience and expertise, what do you see as the major opportunities to improve accessibility for students, faculty, and staff with disabilities? And what are some of the things that are currently being worked on? I think this one goes to Elizabeth.
And now I have to turn my pages. This is Elizabeth again. So when we talk about functional solutions, we really want to get into what are things that are low-hanging fruit or readily available to us. Ruben gave us an amazing example of a first one. Does every campus have a barrier reporting form that goes to somebody who can review, evaluate, and connect and look for solutions? That's cost-effective, it's efficient, and it's available. We also have most recently, in collaboration and support with UW System President Rothman and the 13 chancellors, proposed a digital maturity self-assessment looking at our digital ecosystem. During COVID, we made great advances in accessibility and learned about situations and solutions we never knew before. How do we take those amazing growth points that we've had, evaluate where we are in our digital ecosystem, and look at where we need to move forward? You cannot come to a university today and not be interacting in one of our digital ecosystems. As a matter of fact, you can't apply to one of the universities if you can't do it online. So our first step, our first entry point, applying for jobs, applying to be at the university, sometimes getting your ticket through the performance, all requires interacting with a digital interface. We are thankful that the 13 chancellors have embraced this. The three of us here at this table today, Ruben, myself, and Ann, are all available for consultation as this project moves forward. The students have clearly identified, as has the annual report for the last 4 years, thoughts about increased funding and FTE focused on accessibility. Disability services are no longer transactional. They are dialogical and interactive. If a student doesn't have accommodations for the first 2 weeks out of 16 weeks of a semester, they're already behind. Their chances of success are delayed, disrupted, interrupted. Sometimes our faculty, and many times our faculty, are working very hard to make sure those students are accessible, but they don't have knowledge of the tools. And again, what are the resources and how are we communicating and helping them be set up for success to be successful in the classroom as educators? That leads us to the idea of looking at mandated training. All of the disability service officers and partners and advocates for disability services regularly reach out and provide information and offer training on our campuses. Our colleagues at UW-Milwaukee have created an online course that's hosted and recognized by the provost. Our colleagues at UW-Madison have put together a history of the independent living movement and disability rights. What we don't have is more than 2 minutes in the mandated training under Title IX and discrimination. I know because I just completed the training. There's 2 minutes talking about disability discrimination and nothing talking about disability access. We would encourage the Board of Regents to look at how we can leverage the tools that we already have at Milwaukee and Madison to potentially look at a mandated training that would help all of our campus community be knowledgeable, advocates, and aware. We also would ask the Board of Regents to consider endorsing and amplifying the idea of universal design, shifting from minimums, shifting from accommodations, moving to ease of access and inclusion for all of our campus community stakeholders. And last but not least, a shout out to Chancellor Frank. We ask that you prioritize our older buildings that have no access. Many of our buildings, and some of you who are in Van Nuys, have had fun with elevators. We have campuses where elevators are so old, our companies like Otis have to fabricate parts, which means elevators can be offline for anywhere from 1 to 4 days. Students have been stranded, employees have had to be relocated to lower floors because they can't take the stairs. When we prioritize and make sure that access is a part of our capital planning, We're telling our students, our community members, and our employees, you belong here and you're important. And we know that's the message and the spirit of the Board of Regents and UW system and the 13 campuses. Those are some of the ideas that the students and the President's Advisory Committee have to put forth today.
All right. So with that, we will open it up to questions of our panelists from the board for our students or our President's Advisory Committee members.
Yes, Regent Rye.
So, number one, I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting us with your daughter. I think that's the ultimate trust that we could ever be given, and we have to do better. Karima, you brought up those with the invisible disabilities, and I think it was Harrison that also talked about that point. So I have a concern and a question, just understanding resources. We're more and more of our students are coming to us now with undiagnosed disabilities, especially coming out of the pandemic. Those that may have been infected with COVID recently or suffer from long COVID now being identified as a neurologic disease. I'm concerned about resources and trying to understand what you have for resources for the undiagnosed student. Because I know what it's like in the real world, given my my day job. I don't know if it's a real job, but my day job on access. And I'm wondering, when we identify or a professor identifies a student that may have a disability that's undiagnosed, what's the timing there to get accommodations, to get diagnoses, to get treatment, and the pathway for those students? Because I feel like we're doing a great job talking about the students we have, and we could do a better job accommodating them, and those comments have been obviously made. But there is a group of students, I feel, and I think we all know, that are there on campus who could be more successful if we were able to diagnose, as it was put in, the hidden disability, and then get them the appropriate accommodation. So I guess I'm looking at the faculty and the staff at the table, more importantly, where you feel those resources are, and how is it on campus for that undiagnosed student?
This is Elizabeth again. We're all kind of making eye contact with each other to see who's going to pick up the ball. That's a really critical question. The answer to that is it depends. So some campuses have diagnostic services available to them, others do not. Some have them embedded in student segregated fees, and others do not. Depending on the type of diagnosis or documentation necessary, what I do know is most of the disability services offices provide temporary disability accommodations that will provide some level of intermittent support to students as they're navigating their documentation. We believe in a social justice model, which means access is a civil rights, and that barriers are those things that we have left in place in front of our students. We work closely, and I'm looking at Ann and Ruben, all three of us have served in a disability service office and or currently a director. We work closely with all of our campus partners, such as those care teams or behavioral intervention teams where referrals may be coming in. Most of us have a member who sits on those committees. We work closely with our counseling services office, our healthcare services offices, and provide a lot of direct support. However, ultimately, some of those students who can't get documentation or don't understand or lack those resources may not get access to services. That's not the ideal world, and I don't think that's what most of us want. And if you look at the total number of students being served, what you can see is that most of the offices are attempting to work with every student who comes through their door in some capacity, which is why there's been over a 50% increase in the last 2 years.
Thank you. Just a follow-up comment to my fellow Regents. Number one, we all enjoy making our campus visits. I spent an afternoon at the Access Center at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and I encourage all of you to, when you do your campus visits, to spend your time there. It is eye-opening and educational. Secondly, this is my encouragement to system. We train the capacity within our system. We educate those who can make these diagnoses, these who can provide the testing. They're just not on every campus. But if we look at our medical school, if we look at our residency programs at UW, if we look at the neuropsych program at UWM, and they need patients, patients are individuals that need diagnostic help we need to use the resources of our campuses as educators to provide this treatment and therapy and testing system-wide. So I'd encourage the system to look at a system-wide approach with the resources. Once again, the labor workforce that we train is critical to the state of Wisconsin, especially when it comes to this category. But think about the labor force that we have that we are training that could already benefit our students. So I'd encourage you to look at that.
Thank you, Regent Rye. Yes, Regent Underly.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Thank you for sharing so much. My question, and maybe it's for John, perhaps, or maybe Ann, but civil rights accessibility audits. I know like the K-12 school districts go through them on their facilities. And, I assume UW goes through these, but I don't know. So these access audits look at floor plans, they look at space use, especially for access for students and staff with physical disabilities. So ramps, size of door frames, et cetera. And I'm just curious if we do these, if we go through these audits as well, and if we do, how are those findings shared?
So I think that would be campus by campus, so I'll let our panel take that on.
This is Ruben. I'm at UW-Madison, so I'm not aware of us going through an external audit. For example, we do have a dedicated facilities access specialist whose position is to ensure that we're complying. But again, these are with the technical requirements of the ADA's, essentially the accessibility building codes, are known as the ADA standards for accessible design. One thing I did want to mention is that there was a faculty resolution passed last year through the Faculty Senate at UW-Madison that called for a review of our campus facilities, physical facilities landscape to address some of the points that you brought up, a review of our site plans from accessible parking all the way through the accessible route leading into the building. External audits are a fantastic way for us to look at, are we complying with the technical requirements? But I will also add that when we bring in auditors who themselves have disabilities, we are then in a better position to look at the functional requirements. So we can have something that's up to code according to the blueprint, but at the end of the day, can an individual with a disability readily access and use that space? So I hope I've answered your question. I'm not aware of anything that we have officially, but at Madison, we're unique in that I know that we do have a dedicated person able to examine these issues, but I'm unsure how our other campuses are set up.
Thank you. Teresa, did you want to? No, okay. Regent Bogus.
Thank you, and thank you so much for making this huge effort to come here and share your experiences with us. I really appreciate all the hard work. My question has to do with what we talked about, kind of tying in mandatory training. And I'd like to hear from the students. You could educate us on if you do have accommodations, if you've received accommodations. Sometimes faculty staff are the front lines of the face of giving you those accommodations. If you could kind of explain, even if you have accommodations, I've heard from many students, faculty that may not really understand what that means, if they're visible or invisible, what that's like for you. You start your semester and you have different professors, different maybe teaching assistants. How do you share that information? And what is it like? Have you been given what you need, or do you have to ask the Office of Disabilities to help you with that? So if any of you are willing to share that.
Sure. Okay, so I can especially, this kind of draws back to an experience I had last fall when I first attended Stout. I was experiencing my accommodations in the first couple of weeks of the semester, and I was going through one of my macroeconomics classes, and the professor simply said, okay, you can see a little bit, why don't you just sit in the front of the room? Which is extremely insulting, but also he doesn't know my level of usability of vision and really kind of came at me as that it's not my responsibility to figure out what the solution should be. And with the discussion with Disability Services and his professor, we were able to come up with a plan, but there were still parts on the professor that he simply didn't understand what accessibility meant when it came to tactile graphics with drawing the graphs with puff paint, which essentially allows me to feel the graphs and understand what he is physically drawing on the board. I will say, however, after that experience and working with Disability Services and our faculty on campus here, it is a lot easier. That is a minority of experiences I've had, but it is also something that I've heard often in my department is that we don't know how to serve you, so tell us what we need to do and we will do our best to make it possible.
Any other students care to weigh in on that? Yes, go ahead.
So as I stated when I was talking about my experience, I have accommodations for my chronic pain for my hip. And I know that at my campus, we have to resubmit our accommodation form every semester, from my understanding. So we go into the portal and we select which accommodations we need. And then they'll essentially be sent out to the professor of like, I get accommodations, I get extra work days if I have a flare-up in my hip pain. So let's say I miss a due date for an exam or a big project. If I need that accommodation to extend my due date, I'm given that accommodation, but I also do have to remind them that I have the accommodation. So I do email my professors constantly like, hey, I'm having a flare-up today. Do you know about my accommodations? Sometimes they'll say they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't even know I have accommodations. That could just be technology, you never know. Technology is very unpredictable. So I know that's what happens at least where my campus is. I think I've only had one time where I had a professor tell me that, I can't really give you an extension because I didn't know you had accommodations. And I was like, well, I have the accommodation, and I was informed that you were informed that I had the accommodation. So I had to get that in pretty last minute. So that's something that I had to deal with as well.
Okay, thank you. Any of our online students want to weigh in?
I'll just briefly say that I think Hunter and Karime's messages identify the very importance of not making our students be advocates for themselves, which is doubly important for those students with the invisible disabilities, seeing as they're already facing typically some kind of personal, motivational, or cognitive barrier. Those are symptoms of depression, anxiety, ADHD. I think having the accessibility services be proactive and having them try to do principles of universal design, not just in spaces, but also in our course materials and in the ways in which we access those course materials is incredibly important, especially because also these conditions can co-occur with other disability concerns. So you can have both a physical disability as well as something mental, which presents really a problem where asking students to be those advocates for themselves is just, I think, a little bit too demanding of their time if we can avoid doing so.
Thank you. Other questions from Regents? Yes, Regent Miller.
Thank you. I just have a question on the initial process for seeking an official accommodation. Is there like an official arbiter who decides at each campus whether somebody qualifies for an application or for an accommodation? I'm just wondering if there's a point person, sort of somebody who takes your case, because it seems like there's a situation where the communication to the professors and staff is lacking. Is there sort of an official application? How does it work? And then once the application is approved, hopefully, how does it dispersed to the community so that you don't have to be that advocate for yourself on a daily basis to some who, for example, professors who should know but don't, and then you've got to go back and have that battle about extra time or whatever you need. Just sort of.
This is Ann again. Each of our 13 universities have invested significantly in robust online systems. Most of us have a database management system called AIM, and a couple also have a different system called Accommodate. So students have access to that 24/7, and that is how they can initially connect with us. Most of our applications have just brief questions, maybe 8 or 9 questions to get your application in, and that is then submitted to the Disability Services offices. Through that, we reach out to students to have them schedule an appointment. Now that can be through Teams or in person. And so we are listening to the student's self-report, which is a very important part of the interactive process. We also then assist the students in either uploading documentation or figuring out, is there a way that we need to assist in getting documentation. So it'll be an access coordinator typically who works with the student, and we hope to have that process from start to finish be pretty quick. Sometimes it can be in that one meeting. Sometimes it might take up to 2 weeks. But generally, part of that is also dependent on the documentation, and does that support the request that the student is asking for.
And is there an appeal process if an accommodation isn't granted?
Yes, there is.
Thank you. Regents, any other questions? I'd like to ask the students, I know I've heard in some of the shared governance conversations we had about this, and communication seems to be a big issue. It's an issue for students who don't know who to go to or where to go. Also the communication with the faculty. I want to zero in on the students. What are some ways we could communicate with you about services and where you go and what you can do? What are some ways we could better communicate that to you? Yeah.
So I work on my campus. I'm a student worker. Being an ambassador gives me a kind of advantage point as to when I give tours. I'm able to tell the students, hey, we do have student accessibility services. I show them our bulletin board that we have of the information. I let them know that there's also information online and everything, so I do have that advantage when I give tours. And I also let my other student ambassador coworkers know, like, when you're giving a tour, make sure you really point out our resources. Like, we do have free counseling on campus. At my campus specifically, we only have it for 1 day, so it's not, ideal, but, it's still a resource that's there. And I also like to emphasize when I do give these tours to students, like, hey, our counseling services are in the back here. There is a sign that says counseling services, but if you don't want other students to see, you can just sneak in, say you're talking to one of our IT people. It's very secluded, very private, and I think that's a really big advantage point for our counseling services, at least. I think that it would be something that I personally want to see more of is when we're giving our campus tours, because we are talking to potential students coming into our campus and also students who are probably admitted into our campus, tell them about these student resources. Because I know at Green Bay, students who typically come to Green Bay usually admit because, hey, we had a really great tour experience, like these student ambassadors are super fun, like they made the tour really great, and we really do try our best to make our tour great. I had a tour on Tuesday, and the student actually said, you know what, I think I'm just gonna come to UW Green Bay Manitowoc campus, it's closer to home, and I really like the tour you gave, which really meant a lot to me. It means I did my job okay. And it's another win, for me personally and for our campus. But like I said, when I give these tours, I really, really emphasize our resources as much as I can. I let them know, like, we have free counseling, student accessibility services, we have multi-ethnic student affairs for students of different multi-ethnicities, things like that. And I think when you tell them at these tours, because they're trying to take in all the knowledge that they can, because this is when they're like, oh, this is the campus I might be attending, like, I really should get familiar with it. They will really absorb that knowledge and absorb the knowledge of those resources. And if you make it like, hey, this is our Dean of Students, like, you can go talk to our Dean of Students, go talk to, at us, like, we have our G-bossers, go talk to our G-bossers. They'll help you with absolutely anything you need. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's really a 50-50, so.
I wish we could clone you to be on every campus tour. I can well imagine it's a good tour and a fun tour. And I see we've got a hand up. Is that you, Harrison?
Teresa was before me.
Teresa, please go ahead, Teresa.
Hi, I wanted to say that I agree that adding to our tours some more comprehensive information about our resources. I think in addition to that, we could implement some further explanations of the resources and how students can access those through the kind of orientation. So for first year students, that kind of like packet of information they receive about all of the campus resources, kind of going a little bit further into detail on how they can best access accommodations, because I know, at least personally, I just am not super familiar with that process and I'm not sure how to find that information. So by providing that information to students right away, we can connect them with those resources and they won't have to kind of go searching for them on their own.
Thank you, Harrison.
I'm going to wait 1 second for the audio.
I think we might have lost Harrison. I apologize for that. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our time. Harrison, please send me an email with your thoughts, kwalsh@uwsa.edu. I would very much like to hear it. Thank you to all the students and staff who came forward to help educate us as Regents about these issues. It's so important. We admire your courage. We want you to succeed, and we want your fellow students to succeed. And we can do better in this area, I think. So thank you so much. And I think with that, we will take a 5-minute break. The UW system hosted its signature event and one of my personal favorites, Research in the Rotunda at the state capitol. Today we'll see a brief video recapping this great event. First, President Rothman would like to say a few words.
Great. Thank you very much, Regent President Walsh, and good morning, everyone. This was my first experience with Research in the Rotunda, and I've got to tell you, I was so extraordinarily impressed to see our students. The passion and the sense of purpose in their research was on full display, and the energy in that room was palpable. I had the opportunity to walk up and spent an hour and a half walking around and seeing what our students were doing. I did have to ask them to take it down a couple notches so that I could actually understand what they were working on. It was really, but it's incredible. And you saw people from all of our universities were there. They were represented and just did such an extraordinary job. Anytime you feel a little bit down about the state of the world and where we may be headed, both as a country and as a globe, hey, go down and have one of those experiences and you feel a whole lot better about the future of our country and our world. The Research in Rotunda this year involved 90 different research projects, and as I mentioned, every single university in the system was represented. I would like to take this moment to thank the more than 100 student participants, as well as their faculty advisors. And the great thing when you saw this is you saw the pride in the faculty members as they were assisting the undergraduate researchers that they had helped. Not only was this research notable, but each of them served as great ambassadors of each of our universities to the state elected officials and agency heads who attended Research in the Rotunda. And there were a number of them, which was great for them to see the great work that's being done on each of our campuses. In the theory that a picture is worth 1,000 words, we have a video that kind of lays out what happened at Research in the Rotunda, and I would like to show that to you now.
So really today and fundamentally we're here because there are so many good questions looking for answers.
Undergraduate research is absolutely critical to the educational experience. When you see it here today, you see what these students are accomplishing, what they're learning in terms of creative thought process, in terms of innovative problem-solving skills. It is just an important part of a student's education.
When I'm not in the classroom, I'm probably in the lab. Being an undergraduate researcher is a pretty big part of my identity of a college student. Opportunities that I've been provided with have given me the means and the resources to pursue things that I'm passionate about, things that I care about, and things that I believe have an impact on society around us. My research was conducting a meta-analysis of the accuracy of psychological profiling. Narrative in video games utilizing Walter Fisher's narrative paradigm. Studying galaxy growth in the early universe.
See how both performance level and disclosure of a diagnosis affect work performance rate.
Test the correlation between future returns and composite scores.
I study the human skin microbiome.
Obviously, AI grading and ChatGPT are very big subjects right now.
Innovative ideas, new and adapted, that they used to get through the COVID-19 pandemic. Focusing on how that can influence land management decisions. Because lake whitefish are a huge commercial fishery within the whole Great Lakes. They make up a multi-million-dollar industry. There's a lot of potential for workforce development and being able to serve them appropriately and accurately.
I'm surrounded by passionate students who have dreams, future. It's a great experience.
Personally, this research opportunity has been absolutely amazing.
I've had a great time getting to know mentors and really making lasting friendships and connections.
Doing this research, I was able to network and gain ideas that someday I hope to implement. Helps me step out of my comfort zone and gives me the confidence to want to do more, play with data, and also just cultivate my curiosity. It's so meaningful to get to the end of your project and just feel so accomplished in what you've done and the skills that you've built. And I have gotten astronomy PhD acceptances now, so this work is bigger than me, it's bigger than my passion. It's just been life-changing.
We're graduating around you students who have such a thirst for knowledge.
I can't believe I get to do this for school, for work. I mean, it's amazing.
I guess if that doesn't bring purpose to what we all do around this table, I don't know what will. I hope we're all excited about the bright future these students have ahead of them. And I want to put a pitch in right now. It's kind of self-serving, but I hope they stay in Wisconsin. You know, we've talked a lot about the war for talent, but to have that kind of academic caliber and those kind of futures in the state would be absolutely fantastic. I'd also be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank both our government relations team and communications team at System for their hard work on this year's Research in the Rotunda, with a special shout out to our State Relations Director, Kathy Devine, who really led this project, and it really almost is, I would think it's almost a full-time project. I think Kathy started the day after, starting for next year, and she was also ably assisted by Julie Januzzi. But really thanks to all of the team that worked on that, and that team and I look forward to doing it again next year, which will be the 20th anniversary of the event. And with that, it's back to you, President Walsh.
All right, thank you. It's now time for one of our most enjoyable responsibilities as a board. That is the presentation of Regent Awards. Today, we present the 31st Annual Regents Teaching Excellence Awards, which recognize outstanding faculty and instructional staff members in the UW system. To lead us in the awards presentation, I turn the floor over to the Chair of the Awards Selection Committee, my colleague Chris Peterson.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Board of Regents, it is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished guests this morning, the recipients of the 2023 Regents Teaching Excellence Awards. We are also welcome their family, friends, and colleagues. The Regents Teaching Excellence Award, which marks its 31st anniversary this year, recognizes and honors some of the UW system's most outstanding teachers, departments, and programs. This is the highest recognition bestowed by the UW system on members of its faculty and instructional academic staff for outstanding career achievements in teaching. It's a welcome reminder of what a treasure we have in our faculty and academic staff, those who bring that special dedication, creativity, and passion to their craft, and to whom we entrust the education and enlightenment of our citizens, helping students to achieve their fullest potential. Exceptional teachers can have a transformational effect on their students, helping students imagine and create futures for themselves they previously may never have imagined or thought possible. Perhaps each of you here today can recall such a person in your own life, someone who has set you on a path to a fulfilling career or life calling. As you are about to hear, we will get a glimpse of how our honorees have motivated their students and their colleagues, and even themselves, to venture further than they thought possible in their higher education journey. If anyone wants to learn a little more about our award winners, I invite you to check out their profiles on the Board of Regents website. I'd like to thank my fellow regents on the selection committee who will help to present the awards this morning. Regent Mike Jones, Regent Jill Underly, and Regent Ed Manydeeds. All of today's award recipients are impressive examples of the powerful impact that such excellent teachers can have on students' lives. We look forward to hearing from each of them in a few moments. Before we present this year's award winners, however, I'd like to acknowledge the other nominees by reading their names and institutions. The individual nominees included Dr. Lisa Quinn Lee, UW-Eau Claire, Dr. Phil Clampett, UW Green Bay, Dr. Lindsay Steiner, UW-La Crosse, Asifa Qureshi Londies, SJD, UW-Madison. I practiced that one over and over again to try to get it right. It's Dr. Sarah Diarmond, UW-Oshkosh, Rhonda Petrie, MA, UW River Falls, Dr. Kimberly Martinez, UW-Stout, and Dr. John Werner, UW-Whitewater. Program nominees included UW-Eau Claire's MBA Consortium, UW-Oshkosh's Reading and Study Skills Center, UW-Platteville's Mathematics Department, UW-River Falls Department of Psychological Sciences, and UW-Whitewater's Department of Geography, Geology, and Environmental Science. On behalf of our committee, I want to thank all of the nominees for taking time to submit materials and for their significant contributions. My colleagues on the Regent Selection Committee will now each introduce one of this year's 3 award recipients. Each recipient will then have an opportunity to make brief remarks. Presenting our first award is Regent Jill Underly.
Thank you, Regent Peterson. Good morning. I am honored to present our first Regents Teaching Excellence Award to Dr. Jonathan Shailor, professor in the Communication Department at UW-Parkside. Dr. Shailor has been a professor at UW-Parkside for 28 years, teaching 22 different courses. He is a leader and role model for his commitment to community-based learning, applying teaching and learning to unconventional spaces beyond the university classroom. He engages his students in organizations that serve elementary and high school students, as well as individuals who are incarcerated and homeless. His innovative approaches situate students, theories, and concepts in unscripted, real-life situations. The power of communication is shown in the deeply profound reflections written by his students. Dr. Shailor directs the certificate program in conflict analysis and resolution, which he founded. He also founded and directs the Shakespeare Prison Project between UW-Parkside and the Racine Correctional Institution. This program invites inmates to explore productive ways to address conflict through acting in Shakespeare's plays. In addition to books, articles, and films, Dr. Shailor incorporates challenging individual and group activities, including dialogues, debates, storytelling, student performances, and community activities. He has participated in UW system professional development programs, often as a facilitator and leader. The department chair made this reflection about our honoree. Quote, Dr. Shailor has exposed students to subjects and people that most of us only learn about in books. He takes the students to the front lines of society and demonstrates the transformative power of education, compassion, and social justice, unquote. On that note, it is my privilege to introduce our first 2023 Regents Teaching Excellence Award recipient, Dr. Jonathan Shailor.
Thank you. First, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the UW System Board of Regents. Thank you, Jill, for your recognition of my contributions teaching. It is indeed an honor to accept this award from you and in the presence of our other outstanding educators, so thank you very much. I'm thrilled to tell you that I'm accepting this award from inside my classroom at Racine Correctional Institution. In the presence of some of my students from the two UWP courses that I'm teaching here this semester, I want to applaud them. And I want to thank Mr. Derler because this really is his classroom. He's the education director here at Racine Correctional Institution. So as we know, education is a communal enterprise. I want to let you know that for me, the guiding light to this enterprise has been 4 principles: individual empowerment, relational responsibility, cultivating the moral imagination, and advocating and creating social justice. I believe that this is possible because I believe that all human beings are basically good. I believe that they are basically kind. I believe that they are basically wise and that they are basically strong. And what gets in the way is unskillful actions and an inability to deal with the traumas that we've experienced as a society and as individuals. So these guiding lights have kept me motivated now for 43 years in education. I want to thank the people who walked before me, who walk with me, and who will walk after me. I would like to thank those who walked before me. C.C. Hunt, my high school choral director. It's always those early teachers who taught me the true meaning of the word harmony. John Warthen, my mentor during my internship as a high school teacher, who made Shakespeare come alive for me. Barnett Pierce, my graduate school advisor, who shook the ground under my feet and opened vistas by introducing me to the communication perspective, which in a nutshell is this: we get what we make. We make it in communication. If we get the pattern of communication right, the best possible things will happen. I want to thank Augusto Boal and the community of the Theater of the Oppressed, who taught me image theater, forum theater, and so much more, showing me the way to come together in community through storytelling, dialogue, and performance. I want to thank communication professor Wendy Leeds Hurwitz, who is essential in not only helping me to survive, but to thrive as a young professor when I first joined the UW system as a transplant from the Northeastern United States. Thank you to Racine Correctional Institution Education Director Jean Teamy and educator activist Roseanne Mason, who brought me and others from UWP into this prison in 1995. We were here in 1995 and I have never left. Those who walk with me are many. I want to highlight a few. All the teachers and education leaders in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections and in the UW system, including those in the UW System Prison Education Initiative. Lisa Kornetsky, theater professor and former director of the Office of Professional and Instructional Development, with whom I have had endlessly gratifying conversations about teaching, learning, and life. Lisa has been a big part of the Shakespeare Prison Project, which I started here in 2004. Faye Akindes, who's the current director of the Office of Professional and Instructional Development, who has an uncanny ability to create spaces where all of us can flourish. I'm especially grateful for the opportunities she has given me and my students to share our work at system-wide conferences, and all of the wonderful teaching artists in the international Shakespeare and prison community, all of my colleagues at UW-Parkside, and especially my colleagues in the communication department, who were honored last year with the program award from the Board of Regents. Adrian, Jackie, Hillary, Angelie, Joe, and my dean, Leslie. My brothers, Tommy, Christopher, and Richard. My sister, Kimberly. My nieces and nephews. My adopted parents, Tom and Lori. My amazing wife, Catherine, and our amazing offspring, Isaac. And I want to thank those who will walk after me. All of my students. An hour from now, I will join my students here at RCI. We will be presenting a 1-hour panel on conflict transformation and prison education at St. Norbert's College in Green Bay at the annual conference of the Wisconsin Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies. So more power to them. Thank you to all of my students for sharing their light with others and helping to build a better world. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
It is my particular pleasure to present the second Regents Teaching Excellence Award to Dr. Erin Aldridge, Professor of Violin and Director of Orchestra at UW-Superior. Dr. Aldridge is an accomplished musician, educator, and scholar. For over 20 years, her professional performing and recording career has informed and enhanced her teaching. During the COVID pandemic, she embraced technology to teach her classes and lessons online. She learned to record, edit, and produce music videos and concerts. These technical skills are now an integral part of her teaching repertoire. Dr. Aldridge is deeply committed to the role of music in cultivating healthy mindsets in her students. She gives her students individualized attention and highlights music's power to inspire and create a sense of community and belonging. In addition to teaching applied violin lessons, university orchestra, string chamber music, among a host of other classes, she supports undergraduate research opportunities in the fields of music and business. She brings internationally acclaimed artists to give master classes at UW-Superior, and she encourages her students to explore other music genres, including jazz, folk, and bluegrass. She also generously donates her time to area schools to teach, conduct, and perform. Her students give her glowing reviews describing her as approachable, caring, and devoted to their success and personal growth. The department chair says of our honoree, Dr. Aldridge is constantly reassessing her own effectiveness and pushing herself to be a better educator for her students. This is especially important at our campus, where there are many first-generation students. Please join me in congratulating our second award recipient, Dr. Erin Aldridge of UW-Superior.
Good morning. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Board of Regents for this incredible recognition and honor. I feel so lucky to be a teacher. I love the process and I love the challenges. To me, the excellence of teaching and learning at the core starts from a place of wanting to be a lifelong learner. I get asked a lot by people if I still have to practice. I usually have to school myself at that point because practicing is never ending, and so I make sure I chuckle to myself, but not aloud. But my usual answer is that the day I stop practicing is the day I die. I will always work to be better and to learn more, something that I think that is important to model to students. I think the process of creating and the process of getting better is mirrored through example rather than words. Music is really, really hard. It's subjective. It's emotional. And I always find it very interesting and different from a lot of other disciplines that a student comes into my office every week to be told what they're not doing well. And that's a simplistic approach because I find the importance of finding balance and saying, hey, this is going really well, and we're going to keep working on these things and make them better. I think that's such an important part of this process, but it also makes it very, very difficult. So much of music is based around the concept of perfection, a concept I finally learned to reject. For me, practice is about the journey of self-assessment, self-acceptance, and working towards playing the best that I possibly can. It has taken me years to find a place of peace concerning perfection, and at times it was difficult to navigate, but I'm incredibly thankful for that process because it's made me a better teacher for my students. I have a few key concepts that I live by in teaching. So number one, I individualize my teaching for every student I have, whether in one-on-one lessons, whether in orchestra, or whether in a classroom. Every student learns differently, and it is my job to take a successful pedagogy and mold that to each student. Number two, I constantly reflect and assess what is working and what isn't, and I'm not afraid to make changes. Number three, and this goes along with number two, I'm never afraid to admit I made a mistake. I think there is a power in that, and I think students seeing that you're human is really important. And I have a mantra, mistakes are just information. They tell you how to do things better the next time. Number four, never forget what it's like to be their age. I actively listen to the music that's current and find the topics that's current so that I can at least understand and be somewhat relatable to my students. Number five, don't be afraid to have fun. I will do whatever it takes to get a point across a concept. I will dance, I will crack jokes, I will wear wigs, I will do whatever possible. And I think sometimes learning through laughter is some of the best medicine. I love my job. I am lucky in that I have the perfect alignment in a higher ed position that not everyone gets to experience. While I work incredibly hard, I can't do it alone, and I am very fortunate to have incredible people surrounding me, and I would like to say a few thank yous. First and foremost, I have some of the greatest students on the planet. Our music department has the knack for taking students as they are and helping them to realize their own greatest potential, whatever that looks like for each individual student. Our students are vibrant, talented, smart, and above all else, awesome people. They are open to new ideas, willing to share their own thoughts and perspectives, and are my teachers as much as I am theirs. I am also lucky to be in a department with people that I not only call colleagues, but grateful to call friends. We cultivate an atmosphere of inclusivity and family, and our students embrace this. We practice what we preach, and that we all work tremendously hard and are all in together. There are no stable wars. There is no competition. We just do the best that we can, support one another, and even hang out together. I have colleagues who embrace my crazy ideas and help me run with them, and they not only support my exploration of different styles of music, but they encourage it. I also have to give special thanks to our chair, Dr. Brett Jones, who has been an instrumental part, literally and figuratively, in supporting me in the work that I do. I am so incredibly grateful for his wisdom and support. As important as a strong department is, it is only as strong as the administration. And we are so incredibly lucky to have a team of people I look up to. We have tremendous support from our administration at UW-Superior, including Chancellor Renee Wachter, Provost Maria Cuso, and our Dean of Faculty, Nick Dons. I would also like to thank the fabulous Jamie White-Farnham for her help and support through this nomination process. Last but not least, I have to thank my parents, who are, for me, my guiding lights and the most incredible people on the planet, and their support has been unbelievable. Because I am in such a supportive environment, I am allowed to teach and perform in the most creative ways that I come up with. This makes my teaching and performing life intensive and wonderful, which is incredibly important to me. I am now in my 20th year of teaching, and I feel like I am still able to grow as a person, as an educator, and as an artist in ways I am not sure I would be able to anywhere else. I am so thankful to be at UW-Superior, surrounded by people who inspire me every day, which allows me to do the work that I am being recognized for today. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much.
Good morning. I'm honored to present our third award for this year. This award recognizes the outstanding teaching of a department or program. That honor goes to the First Nation Education Doctorate at UW Green Bay. The First Nation Education Doctorate is an applied degree centered in Indigenous knowledge systems. It is the first doctoral program of its kind in Wisconsin. The program was conceived by UW Green Bay and tribal nations in Wisconsin. It emphasizes Indigenous content and context, including Indigenous teaching methods and forms of assessment. This approach offers a more holistic approach to education. The program leverages the expertise of 4 full-time faculty members, as well as elders and oral scholars from First Nations. The program represents a breadth of nations including Oneida, Menominee, Lac du Flambeau, Cherokee, and Delaware. The first graduates earned their diplomas in the spring of 2022, and the third cohort started its program in the fall of 2022. The program prepares transformational leaders who will impact change in school, community agencies, and other institutions. These impacts are visible from student dissertation projects. These projects involve tribal and community organizations that promote indigenous language among youth, revitalize environmental resources, impact generational healing through art, and more. A colleague observed this about the program, quote, "I consider the First Nations Education Doctorate program to be one of the most innovative, cohesive, community-oriented, and equity-minded academic programs that I've ever encountered," unquote. It's an honor to present our Regents Teaching Excellent Program Award to the First Nations Doctorate at UW Green Bay. Accepting this on behalf of the department is Dr. P.J. Leary, Associate Professor in First Nations Studies, History, and Humanities.
President Rothman, members of the Board of Regents, honored guests, good morning. My name is J.P. Leary. I'm a faculty member in the EDD program in First Nations Education at UW Green Bay. I stand before you as a person of mixed Indigenous and European heritage, primarily Cherokee, Scottish, and Irish. It is my honor to proudly accept this award on behalf of our program faculty and our broader community. I'll be reading some brief remarks that we kind of collectively drafted. Many thanks to the selection committee, Regents Peterson, Menydeeds, Underly, and Jones for selecting our program. Congratulations to Professor Aldridge and Professor Shailor and all the nominees. It's our honor to stand alongside you. I'm here to accept this award on behalf of our faculty members, our students in cohorts 1, 2, and 3, and those elders and knowledge bearers who have advised us, worked with our students, and co-taught with us. We acknowledge and thank those who have been our teachers, both inside and outside of the academy. Our teaching has been shaped by our elders and mentors who have come before us in the academy, and we want to acknowledge and thank certain ones in particular. We honor and pay our respects to Mohican Elder Dorothy W. Davids, who had worked for UW Extension, and her longtime partner, Dr. Ruth Godinas. We honor and pay our respects to my UW Green Bay predecessors, Dr. Carol Cornelius, who still is on our faculty now, and Mindamuye Rosemary Ackley Christensen, my immediate predecessor at UW Green Bay. These elder teachers in particular have shaped our curriculum design and our pedagogy. We continue to learn and grow as we listen to and learn from our elders. Our teaching has been shaped by tribal leaders, elders, and community members who attended listening sessions that we held across the state as part of our program planning. Their input regarding what our graduates should know and be able to do was absolutely invaluable in our instructional design work. Our teaching has been shaped by lessons we have learned with and from students in all 3 cohorts in our program. We learned new lessons about resilience and flexibility when the pandemic required cohort 1 to transition to a virtual instructional environment as they were completing their coursework. We learned new lessons about tenacity and hope from Cohort 2 as they began their program under COVID restrictions. From Cohort 3, we are learning lessons about community and renewal in this first year together. Our EDD program in First Nations education has enjoyed broad support from our administration and our colleagues from the very beginning. We wish to acknowledge and thank our former Dean and Provost, Sue Madison, former Chancellor Gary Miller, for initiating conversations about those doctoral programs at UW Green Bay. We are grateful to our current Chancellor, Mike Alexander, current Provost, Kate Burns, Dean Susan Gallagher-Lepak, for believing in this work and actively supporting the growth of our program. We wish to thank the Oneida Nation for generous financial support, particularly Chairman Tahasi Hill and Vice Chairman Brandon Yellowbird Stevens. That's helped us build our instructional capacity and further support our students. Similarly, we wish to thank generous donor Marcia Miller for her financial support, which provided scholarships to students, celebrated their successes, and helped them weather the perils of COVID. We are both, most of all, we are grateful to our families whose support makes our work possible. We are both humbled and honored by this recognition, so once again, we would like to thank you, the UW System Board of Regents, for this recognition. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to our award recipients, and a thank you to the staff at various universities who put nominations together, and for our board committee for picking such a great group. It must have been difficult. At this time, we'd like to officially recognize the service of one of our colleagues, Regent Brianna Tucker, whose term on our board ends May 1st. Here to present our resolution of appreciation, I will now call on Regent Vice President Bogust.
Brianna Tucker was appointed to the Board of Regents by Governor Evers in May of 2021. She had just finished her freshman year at UW-Stevens Point and had already gotten involved in many things on campus. Her very first meeting was in June of 2021 at UW-Milwaukee. I was looking forward to meeting her for the first time, and we planned to meet at the hotel in the early evening. I knew she was driving from Stevens Point to Milwaukee, and I also knew she was a little hesitant to drive alone. And of course, I began to worry. Finally, at around 11 p.m., I heard from her that she finally made it to the hotel. She came to my room, she looked a little bit weary, and she told me that she had just gotten her driver's license. And perhaps she just got a little bit lost, but she made it. The one thing that I learned immediately is that Brianna is very determined. Brianna had so many AP credits from her high school in Milwaukee that she was able to start UW-Stevens Point as a sophomore. Not only is she a regent, but she is a member of the UW-Stevens Point Honors Program, a member of the university's Inclusivity Affairs and Diversity Council, a member of Student Government Association, and Latino Student Alliance. And she has worked various jobs while carrying this full load, and somehow has managed to graduate in 3 years. This May, Brianna will graduate with a degree in political science and a minor in criminal justice and Spanish. It is clear that she appreciates the challenge. She is determined, focused, a fearless young woman who is interested in bringing change as well as support to her community and the world around her. We as Regents know the importance of having a student on this board. It is critical for us to hear their perspective and to have this representation because it is students who are at the core of the mission of the UW system. Brianna has done an excellent job using her voice, representing all students at UW-Stevens Point and all students throughout the UW system. We know with her passion, intellectual curiosity, and drive, she will continue have continued success in anything she chooses to do. Your colleagues on the Board of Regents, thank you for your service, and we wish you well in all your future endeavors. Now, I will read the resolution. Whereas Brianna Tucker has dedicated 2 years of exemplary service as a Regent of the University of Wisconsin system from 2021 to 2023. And whereas Brianna has served on the Education Committee working to continue high-quality academic programs at all UW universities, and has also contributed her time and insights serving on the Capital Planning and Budget Committee and the Research, Economic Development, and Innovation Committee. And whereas Brianna, a strong advocate for inclusive excellence in creating community on UW campuses, has served 2 years on the Diversity Awards Committee, publicly recognizing the commitment of outstanding UW educators who support success for all student populations. And whereas Brianna, a proud Pointer, was honored to introduce her Chancellor, Thomas Gibson, for her first presentation to the Board of Regents at its April 2022 meeting, graciously hosted by UW-Stevens Point. And whereas Brianna has been a steadfast advocate for the student experience, engaging with colleagues from each campus to better understand the ways in which students can be supported, and she valued the opportunity to introduce a panel discussion about student needs and the impact of COVID-19 at the April 7th, 2022 Education Committee. And whereas Brianna's aspirations for a career in higher education or the nonprofit sector undoubtedly will be aided by her experiences as a UW-Stevens Point Honors Program student majoring in political science, minoring in criminal justice and Spanish, in addition to her background chairing the Parking Advisory Board, sitting on the university's Inclusivity Affairs Committee and Diversity Council, and serving as a member of the University Student Government Association and Latino Student Alliance. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin system hereby offers thanks and commendation to Brianna Tucker for her dedicated service to the citizens of Wisconsin, and wishes her well in her future endeavors as a soon-to-be Pointer graduate.
Thank you for that sincere and genuine welcome, Regent Vice President Bogost. I have truly appreciated your mentorship, advice, and friendship over these past 2 years. And yes, it is true, I did get my driver's license at the end of my freshman year of college. It was hard, but I got it. Being able to serve in such a position with such intelligent and welcoming people has been an experience truly like no other. I have learned so many valuable and important lessons during my tenure, 2 of which I think are worth sharing. Firstly, listening will get you so far. I sat through so many of these meetings, sitting, listening, trying to take it all in, and listening really made that happen. And second, asking questions is okay. Learning to ask questions at appropriate times with appropriate meanings will save you the stress of trying to figure out this complex system and all of its workings all on your own. Ask the questions, accept the help. Okay, I'm gonna keep this sweet and simple, largely in part of me being an ugly crier, and we don't want that. But before I'm done, I would like to thank quite a bit of people who deserve the recognition and helping me get here. Thank you to Governor Evers for appointing me and giving me the greatest opportunity of my life so far. I will always be in debt to you for this. To the entire board, I want to thank everyone who has served before me, with me, and who will continue to serve after me. It's an honor to work alongside such intelligent and kind people who are always geared towards taking on the same goal, the Wisconsin idea. I would like to thank Chancellor Gibson and the entire faculty and staff at UW-Stevens Point for always being so kind and patient with me and giving me their mentorship. And I would like to thank my professors for always being understanding and patient, as I've had to miss a lot of class, but that is okay. Chancellor Gibson is such a true leader, and I will always forever be proud for representing UW-Stevens Point. Roll Dogs. Okay, I'm going to quickly finish this up. I would like to thank my boyfriend Dylan and my puppy Willow for always making the hard and stressful days that much easier. I'd like to thank Scott West from UW-Stevens Point Admissions for recruiting me to UW-Stevens Point and being the reason I'm in this room today. And he still continues to mentor me even though he's retired, and he's been retired since the fall of 2020. It has been a prestigious honor to have served in this position, and I will forever be grateful for everyone and everything this has taught me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you and congratulations, Brianna. It was a pleasure having you as a colleague. And now I would like to again thank Chancellor Frank and her team for their hospitality during our time here. I now call on Regent Dana Walks to read the board's resolution of appreciation to UW-Stout for hosting the March 2023 meeting.
Whereas the members of the Board of Regents are pleased to recognize the University of Wisconsin-Stout as the official host campus for the board's March 2023 meeting, and are grateful for the generous hospitality extended by Chancellor Catherine Frank and the entire UW-Stout community. And whereas the board appreciated Chancellor Frank leading the panel discussion, fueling the workforce through the Polytechnic Advantage, and the participating experts and employers representing healthcare, manufacturing, childcare, and tourism, who reflected on their respective workforce needs. And whereas the business community heard an overview of the value and costs of providing UW-Stout's Polytechnic education to meet Wisconsin's workforce needs, and whereas the Education Committee thanks Provost Glenda Lee Rodriguez and the Dean of Students, Sandy Scott, for their presentation addressing employer needs for talent and the needs of the state through the championing of student services. Whereas the Capital Planning and Budget Committee learned about UW-Stout's intentional and strategic planning for the future that promotes curricular and co-curricular quality experiences to ensure overall student well-being. And whereas the board was honored to present UW System Regents Business Participation Award to 3M Menominee Plant, nominated by UW-Stout to recognize their positive mutual impact on education and the needs of our workforce and community. And whereas Regents were delighted to participate in the Polytechnic Showcase featuring interactive lab tours and highlighting examples of cross-disciplinary collaborations of researchers, creators, and innovators. Be it resolved that the Board of Regents hereby commends UW-Stout for its informative presentations, forward-thinking Polytechnic spirit, and many continued contributions to the UW system and the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you, Chancellor Frank and your staff. Thank you, Regent Walks. Before we adjourn, do Regents have any communications, petitions, or memorials to share? Seeing none, thank you very much. Safe travels home. We are adjourned.
Is it raining?